He's got Bundy. Well, look at me, get the skies, you got Bundy. Tonight on New Zealand, for whom the bell tolls, Bellend Blathers blithering balderdash, John Campbell gets his dick out, a big hit to a local boxer's bags, Bundy of the week, the New Zealand Labour Party, all that and more on New Zealand. Watch my hand now. Kia ora and welcome to New Zealand. I'm Richard Pulman.
Yep.
Tonight, New Zealand journalists need your help in finding the location of one gutless bald racist currently going by the name of Graham Bell. This vicious, desperate mongrel is being sought to respond further to criticism from the general public regarding the purportedly racist undertones of the reality television series Police 10-7. Critics of the show suggest that the series, perhaps intentionally, casts minority members of the community as possessing the innate characteristic of being drastically more likely to exercise criminal tendencies to the fullest extent available to them. The wild-eyed scruffy goon voiced opposition to the criticism, arguing instead that the popular television series, in which officers are accompanied by film crews while apprehending all manner of hardened criminals, is a net benefit to the community. Often these crimes range from public intoxication to the more severe offence of driving on a suspended licence. Bell immediately attempted to dispel the allegations of painting minority demographics in Aotearoa as being criminally prone, going on record and saying that he believes that it's nothing more than an unfortunate fact that certain sectors of our society are grossly overrepresented in the crime statistics. The sweating goon in question happens to have an extensive background of policing Aotearoa, with a career spanning a 30-year period from the 1980s until as recently as 2010, which should assure viewers at home that there is little chance that this vicious thug could ever be aligned with a history of racist policing. Reporter in the field Scott Freeman attempted to reach out to the individuals at TVNZ responsible for the show, who neglected to comment before hastily entering a cab and speeding off faster than Jerry Brownlee can down an onion sausage. If you have any information pertaining to the whereabouts of this gutless coward, then please contact 0800 News Info. And remember, you can remain anonymous.
Find a group of murderous thugs, two young creeps a half-wit with a gun, a false beard and a turban. Like two vicious morons, two armed and violent mongrels, three stooges, three desperate and wild-eyed gutless goons, three vicious apes, two fat women and a man with a gun, and a scruffy little thug, this little germ, lunatic scumbag with a steak knife.
I'll be looking for more rat bags out and about on the street.
He's got no bad purpose, so he must the fucking rent-a-car.
People don't even know my name.
Popular New Zealand breakfast personality and formerly respected journalist John Campbell has been the subject of a complaint made to the revered New Zealand Broadcasting Standards Authority for his gratuitous and apparently irresponsible use of the word dick. The BSA heard that in 2020, Mr. Campbell quite correctly I read something that wasn't even there.
Start from the last sentence.
Yep. The BSA heard that in August 2020, Mr. Campbell quite accurately referred to President Trump's son, Donald Jr., as a bit of a dick, a total dick, and a... New Zealand investigators have learned that the complaints were lodged by a Mr. Alan Dick of Hamilton, who reportedly took offence to his last name being used in a denigrating manner. He expressed concern for younger people who shared his last name, hearing it being used to deride, and said, "The little dicks of Aotearoa probably haven't been exposed to the name being used as an insulting noun before." Dick was quoted as saying, "Look, I'm no softie. If you ask any of the fellas who know me, they'll tell you I'm a hard man who's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. And all I'm trying to do here is ensure that me and the other members of the Dick community get the respect we're due."
Last week, we received a pending complaint for censure after using another common Kiwi last name as an insult. The complaint was laid by Brian Bullbag, who was upset by our use of his last name to describe colossal testicle Simon Bridges. We here at NewsyLand apologise for any offence we may have caused. I want to stress that I'm not fucking making up that complaint was actually sent in by Mr. Alan Dick of Hamilton. That's not a joke.
Doc Sanchez can a crash course in branding, self-value, posters, media, how to build a crowd, online profile and live performance. You'll never do a free show again.
A high-profile professional Kiwi athlete has recently had his name suppression lifted after he opted to swap the boxing bag for the Ziploc bag. The accomplished Kiwi sportsman has been accused by police to be a part of a supposed global drug dealing ring. The New Zealand police have arrested 3 men on charges of distribution of a Class B controlled substance and have seized large amounts of cash, no doubt pocketing a few wads for themselves for a job well done. Using the very inconspicuous screen name Joe Parker Boxer, the sportsman, who we have chosen not to name, allegedly engaged in various degenerate, immoral and illegal activities such as the exchange of illegally obtained currency, the purchase of Class B controlled drugs and the sale of overpriced underweight bags. What a tosser. This week's esteemed Bundy of the Week award goes to Booze Baron and Brazen Bundy, who thinks it's okay to underpay and overwork migrant workers Jaspreet Jander. Jander and his muggalicious brother Taranjeet are the immoral owners of several discount pissaporiums across several of Aotearoa's decidedly thirstier regions. The Janders, who have been facing the revocation of their liquor licences, have been granted a momentary stay of execution following an appeal to Judge Phillips in the Hamilton District Court. Accused of the classic Kiwi tradition of exploiting migrant workers, the legal counsel of Bund Brother 1 Jaspreet Jander passionately argued before the court that the revoking of his liquor licence may place undue financial strain upon him. Filing an affidavit from his lavish $1.8 million estate on the outskirts of Hamilton, Bundy portrayed himself and his family as being placed in financial hardship and as a family who wouldn't be able to make ends meet if the Tokaroa store was closed. Jander, the owner of more than $3.5 million worth of mortgage-free real estate, in addition to the family-owned liquor empire, is accused by multiple former employees of violation of basic employment standards. Legal counsel on behalf of Jander accepted that these violations had taken place, but that they should be overlooked. After all, paying employees on work visas less than the minimum wage for more hours they can legally be asked to work while not providing mandated breaks for 12-hour shifts for 5 years at a time is the sort of mistake any business owner could feasibly make. Employing the sort of situational awareness usually reserved for coma patients, Jander's counsel would instead argue he was suitable to continue operations, having a spotless record apart from the serious employment breaches. This stellar defence is reminiscent of another high-profile New Zealand case, that of Mark Lundy, who would have an otherwise unblemished criminal record if it wasn't for the 2 murder charges that were laid against him. Apparently, nothing short of freely distributing scrumpy to the prepubescent youth of Aotearoa would constitute a departure from social responsibility in the eyes of Mr. Janda and his council. For this reason, NewsyLand awards our prestigious Bundy of the Week award to Mr. Janda and Two Brothers Incorporated, along with a congratulatory under-the-counter can of his region's finest Waikato draft. The New Zealand Labour Party has drawn criticism from both sides of the aisle in current affairs this week, following the much-anticipated announcement of changes to rules governing the acquisition of real estate. Amendments made to the Brightline test, which is a national-led means of determining the rationale behind the sale of property, have elicited mixed response from the wider community. Avid investors in a resource that literally everyone requires in order to survive have hailed the move as being less than fair on them, with one investor, a Mr. Nick Gentle of Auckland, describing the change in harrowing terms such as awful and stupid, and asked between wiping his tears upon his silken handkerchief, how is anyone supposed to generate a profit from owning 5 consistently appreciating student flats when I can't even sell them within a decade at a profit? This could cost me literally thousands of dollars. And all for what? So some poor student earning a pittance can't access property and doesn't die from exposure as a result. Somehow, perhaps preoccupied by bemoaning his perceived assault on his bottom line, Mr. Gentle was unaware that the changes to the Brightline test only affected property purchased after the amendments were made. This coincides with a groundbreaking report detailing the number of MPs that own investment property. And some detractors claim that the move does not go far enough to combat exponentially rising property costs in Aotearoa. And with the amount of members of parliament that own rental properties themselves, one could be easily forgiven for wondering if the problem lies in having a ruling class comprised almost exclusively of investment landlords to come up with a solution for the problem. The rich fuckstick landlords have pinned their metaphorical hopes on the back of Ultra Karen 3000 and woman that drinks the tears of the peasant class, Sharon Colwick, who is president of the New Zealand Property Investors Federation. Colwick this week issued a statement saying that the organisation, while not aligned to any political party, will be sponsoring a petition advanced by none other than David Seymour's ACT Party. Seymour, despite owning no property whatsoever, was nonetheless happy to come to the aid of the Investor Federation, seen rubbing his hands together in apparent glee while dribbling hungrily into a large bowl of Werther's Originals, no doubt stoked to be given another round of undue attention. Will this be the lasting legacy of ACT? Or like the opposition to the gun control, zero carbon and abortion legislation, will this too be destined to die quietly like a sack of rheumatic kittens in an Italian canal?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Has ACT ever actually meaningfully influenced policy in any of Aotearoa's history? How much longer do we have to endure Seymour prancing around Parliament, spouting nonsense and having the single most punchable face the nation over? We here at NewsyLand have our fingers crossed for the poor investment landlords of New Zealand and truly feel for their suffering and heartache, and will now have a moment of silence for the wealthy wankstains that stand to lose money following the changing of the Brightline testing policy. Fuck them. I own 5 blocks of fucking student flats in Auckland and I'm getting the rent off them every week, but because of this new law I might not be able to sell them for fucking $200,000 profit. And that brings us to the last bulletin for this season's final edition of New Zealand. There is a burgeoning news media outlet on the rise here in Aotearoa, free from corporate influence and unblemished by biased political interests.
Evidently, the New Zealand public yearn for the taste of a free news media as New Kids on the Block New Zealand have caught the attention of the average Kiwi the nation over by presenting a balanced and refreshing take on the country's current affairs. Our sources have indicated that New Zealand's anchor and investigative journalist Richard Pulman is being considered as a nominee for the 2021 Kiwibank New Zealander of the Year accolade, and after a season of hard-hitting, topical and revivifying newscasting, Mr. Pulman is indubitably a shoo-in to take home the award. And that's our season. Thank you for joining us here at New Zealand, and we'll see you for Season 2.
Big thing with the old hang on with strings attached.
My pubic region.
Oh, I thought they just dotted.
You want to see them?
Sick.
Help with your sweet lips. Sorry, Rodney.
All right, Timmy.
That's because she's cute, eh?
He's got game.
My man. Put a pound in there.
That's the song.
Well, this is where we found Bob Jones.
I want to tell anti-marriage jokes. I want to beat the wife and kick the cat for good reasons usually. And it's fun. People go mad. They're causing havoc in New Zealand. Of course it's gone mad. It's ridiculous. It is a form of totalitarianism.
There's no
But you're not allowed to say
way.
it. Pretty girls, pretty girls, pretty girls. Old slags, girl, we want new ones. Fresh crop. Well, they are cripples. I certainly call them cripples. There's another example. We have to spend vast sums of money to let these buggers in our buildings. So probably show off marries and don't let them in. Why do I have an obligation to show off marries, half of who I strongly suspect are making it up? So we've got to be very suspicious. I suspect most of them are making it up. They see it as cruel. But we did enough damage to this country. You know, I've got a little list. That fat fellow covered in tattoos. See, Labour governments are fun because they're irresponsible with other people's money, and the economy just bubbles, you know. It's wonderful. But that means you get departments of women affairs and this sort of crap. She's probably tougher, of course, a lot tougher. She's probably the toughest Prime Minister we've ever had, with a beautiful veneer of an innocent 19-year-old. They're actually extraordinarily pretty. She's got a lucid skin, these bright blue eyes. Yeah, I mean, she really is. It's quite baffling. And she just needs a bit of work with the teeth. Well, she looks about 17. But underneath that, my God, I mean, she'll come out and hang marries. Introduce the Hanging of Marriage Act if she thought it would get her back into office, I'm sure.
No, you're completely right. You're right. There's no way.
I am inviting you.
Hello. I've got a letter.
People don't even know my name.
He's got Bundy. Well, look at me. Can't disguise it. Bundy.